It was China choosing its new best friend in Africa. And that friend is not who you think. Hi go-getters, hope you're doing great and welcome back to the channel. If you're new on the channel, my name is Elvin J, and if you don't know, on here we do everything business, entrepreneurship, basically everything that could bring money to your hands and help you attain financial independence as soon as possible. So I therefore invite you to hit to our playlist and try to catch up on everything we've done so far. And it might interest you to know that we've got a joint venture on a diaper project. If you're interested in joining, please go to our about page and contact us through our membership, or you could simply email us at africatodayinfo@gmail.com. Now back to our topic of the day. You know, our grandmothers used to say that when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. Well, that West African proverb is playing right before our eyes. While everyone's been watching China's relationship with South Africa and Kenya, there's been a quiet revolution happening. One African giant has been positioning itself to become China's most strategic partner on the entire continent. I am talking about Nigeria. Now, before you say, but wait, what about the TRC with all the callbacks? Because what happened between Nigeria and China in September 2024 changed the entire game. And the real reason behind this shift is something no one is talking about. But we'll get to that in just a moment. September 3rd, 2024, President Bola Tinubu steps off a plane in Beijing. The red carpet treatment, honor guards, the whole 9 yards. This was China rolling out the welcome mat for what they saw as their new strategic cornerstone in Africa. See, Nigeria just became one of only a handful countries worldwide that China has elevated to what they call a comprehensive strategic partnership. That's not just fancy diplomatic language. That's China's highest level of bilateral relationship. The same level they have with Russia, Pakistan, and Brazil. But here's what caught my attention. During their meeting, President Tinubu didn't mince words. He told President Xi Jinping directly, "I hope Nigeria will be China's largest investment and trade partner on the entire continent." Now, think about that for a second. Nigeria, with about 230 million people, Africa's largest economy, the continent's biggest oil producer, essentially just told China, "We want to be your number one." But here's the thing that surprised me the most when I was digging into this story. Everyone talks about China's relationship with Africa as if it is just about minerals and resources. Cobalt from the DRC, copper from Zambia, oil from Angola. But what China did with Nigeria was different. They didn't just sign mining deals. They created something called the Nigeria-China Strategic Partnership. Basically, a government agency whose entire job was to manage Chinese investments in Nigeria. So for the general and global liaison of the Nigeria-China partnership, President Tinubu appointed Joseph Tekbe as its director, turned Nigeria into China's African headquarters. We are talking about nuclear energy cooperation, smart city development with Huawei, completion of the massive railway connecting Lagos to the north. And here's the kicker, local currency swaps worth $2 billion. So that means Nigerian businesses can now trade directly with Chinese companies without using the US dollar. But this raises a critical question. Why Nigeria and why now? China could have chosen any African country for this level of partnership. So what makes Nigeria so special that China is betting its African future on Nigeria instead of Cairo or Johannesburg? Here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part most analysts are missing. Now, the thing with China is that they aren't just thinking about today. They are thinking about 2050. And when you look at Nigeria's demographics, everything starts to make sense. Nigeria's population alone is expected to hit 400 million by 2050. That's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. That's the largest consumer market in Africa. Most of them young, increasingly educated, and rapidly urbanizing. So China sees Nigeria as their gateway to capture the entire West African markets. The economic community of the West African states, that's the ECOWAS, represents 400 million people and a combined GDP of $400 billion. And guess who's the chairman of ECOWAS right now? President Tinubu. But here's a masterstroke. China just committed to financing and building ECOWAS' new headquarters. So constructions are still going on right now, and by the time building is completed, every West African trade decision will be taken in a building China built. Now, for those who don't understand, let me break down what this means. When you control the infrastructure, you influence the policy. When you influence the policy, you shape the market. And when you shape the market, you capture the world. Now, I know some of you are thinking, this sounds like economic colonialism, and you aren't wrong to be concerned. There are legitimate questions here. Critics argue that China's comprehensive strategic partnerships often lead to debt dependency. Just look at Sri Lanka's Hambantota port, or even some of the Belt and Road projects across Africa. Countries borrowed heavily and didn't repay, so they ended up ceding control to Chinese companies. So the question is Nigeria walking into the same trap, or are they playing a smarter game? So here's what's different about Nigeria's approach, and this might surprise you. Nigeria learns from other countries' mistakes. President Tinubu didn't just sign blank checks, alright? They established specific performance indicators, required technology transfer, and most importantly, they demanded local production. Remember the $2 billion currency swap I mentioned earlier? That's not just about trade convenience. That's Nigeria positioning itself to eventually trade with all of West Africa in local currencies, reducing the region's dependence on US dollars. So China gets a strategic partner, but Nigeria gets to be the financial hub of West Africa. And here's the most clever part. Nigeria is leveraging China's rivalry with the United States. While China is offering infrastructure and investment, Nigeria is also working with American companies on different sectors. They are playing both sides, extracting maximum value from the competition. How smart is that? In fact, just this year, the US has been scrambling to counter China's influence in Nigeria. So if you look at it very well, the competition is forcing both superpowers to offer better deals to African countries. But the most fascinating part of this story isn't just about China or Nigeria individually. It's about how these partnerships could reshape the entire global economy. China is essentially betting that the future of economic growth isn't in the aging population of Europe and North America. It's in the young, dynamic economies of Africa. And Nigeria, with its massive population and strategic location, becomes their proof of concept. If this partnership succeeds, and if Nigeria becomes Africa's first $1 trillion economy by 2030, as many predict, then China would have demonstrated a new model of South-South cooperation that could be replicated across the global South. But if it fails, that is, if Nigeria ends up trapped in debt or loses its sovereignty over key sectors, then it becomes a cautionary tale for other African countries. So here's my question for you go-getters. Is Nigeria about to become Africa's success story, or are we watching the latest chapter in a very old playbook? So drop your comments below. Let me know if you're optimistic about this partnership, or do you think Nigeria is making a deal with the devil? And if you are part of the diaspora watching this matters to you as well. Because if Nigeria succeeds in becoming China's strategic partner while maintaining its sovereignty, it would create a model of how African countries engage with major powers in the 21st century. So don't forget to like this video if you found value in it, and endeavor to share it with as many people as possible. For as I always say, the more we empower Africans, the greater Africa will be. And if you are passionate about African economics and geopolitics, this is exactly the channel for you. So Remember to subscribe so that you don't miss out on our subsequent videos. And until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and remember the future is being written in Africa. And we all have a role to play in how the story unfolds. Thanks for watching, and I'll definitely see you on the next one.